This episode is brought to you by Skillshare. The first 1,000 people to sign up using the link in the description will get their first 2 months free. A question that can often be heard coming out of the mouths of frustrated taxpayers is, what has the government ever done for me? Well, let's take a look. Public roads, free schools, a police force, libraries, museums, energy and water supplies, legal representation, the list goes on and on. But what about the things we don't want crazy politicians spending our cash on? Such as an obscene amount of military armament, empire building, gross clandestine experimentations, inflated salaries for the political elite, ginormous expense accounts for said politicians, and social and privacy manipulation. What would happen if a country's people decided to stop paying taxes? Anarchy? Utopia? None of the above? And what happened to countries in the past that resisted taxation? That's what we'll explore today. In this episode of the Infographics Show, what would happen if people stopped paying taxes? Well, the big question is, if everyone refused to pay taxes, would there be a trickle-down effect and would that eventually become the law of the land? Hold on. Would there even be laws? With no taxes and no politicians, and no police force and no courts and no judges, who would uphold these laws? Would it even be possible in a modern nation to reach a point where the majority of citizens simply decided to live without taxation and government? Would such a movement be evolution or devolution? Tranquility or chaos? How would things shape out? To answer the question, we have to tackle the issue of tax paying like we would any other issue that the government has to respond to. Take same-sex marriage. A motion that is popular enough to gain enough support of the people would radiate massive warning signs to the current status quo. The government ultimately has to respond to the will of the people. And with same-sex marriage, it was a general consensus, a majority opinion, that civil partnerships between same-sex couples were not a bad thing despite what some hardcore religious folks believed. The government has to react in a way to sway the people against a motion or support it. With taxes, the government would have to listen to the will of the people and respond accordingly, despite the fact that without taxes, the government would no longer be able to exist. So it's a prickly issue, but if anyone can handle a prickly issue, it's a politician. Tax-resistant citizens would probably be bought off with compromises in some fashion. Groups would be targeted and their needs listened to. Tax breaks would be introduced to soften the blow for the most militant. If the movement stood its ground and reached a majority, the stakes and concessions from the government to the people would become more attractive to those rogue taxpayers. However, if the movement stood firm, then at some point, the government would have to play dirty before surrendering. Key members of the tax resistance movement would have their bank accounts frozen and their assets seized. They may well be taken into custody on terrorism charges. The president or prime minister would go on national TV pleading with his or her people. Bundles of cash would be printed and the price of gold would soar. But all this would be most unusual, and really it isn't likely to happen. In the United States, for example, it's unlikely to happen as people know that taxes are required for schools and running water, roads, and other basic human needs. With gun ownership sky high, law and order would become a real concern. A no taxes vote is like a vote for anarchy, and a civilized society has evolved to move away from anarchy, so the movement reaching this point is extremely unlikely. The young and the old would be most affected. With no pensions and no public schools, it would fall on society itself to take care of the elderly and educate the young. Public broadcasting would totally disappear, giving rise to agenda-driven media. Fake news services would flourish even more than they do today. There would be no foreign aid, so international relations would suffer. Healthcare would suffer. The economy would spiral into financial chaos. Law and order might be controlled by mafia-type gangs, or perhaps people would settle into small, self-sufficient groups or communes. Figures would no doubt rise up from these splinter movements to claim power. This is the way human society operates: divide and conquer. Then there are matters of national security and defense. Other countries would see an opportunity to invade the weakened non-government state and attack and attempt to seize assets and commodities. With no government and no army, resistance would be pretty futile. But similar events have occurred in history. The French Revolution was founded on the underclasses being sick of the crippling tax commitments, and the early history of the United States was a constant struggle against tax oppression. So perhaps a correction or adjustment in taxation levels is healthy for society to evolve. It is the government's job to realize when the public is ready to revolt and adjust their taxation policies accordingly. It is little more than a push and pull situation that has to be monitored by both the people and the people's government. Society finds the median rate that citizens are prepared to pay in taxes, and within that area, governments operate. And while we all hate paying taxes, we know we don't have much choice in the matter. We do, however, have a choice on how we educate ourselves on the best ways to spend money. And the only way to become and stay rich is to have good money management. That's why we suggest taking a class called Money Bliss Budgeting: How to Set a Budget and Manage Your Finances Like a Pro in 2018. Among other things, the class will teach you what a budget is, why you need a budget, and how to set your budget right. The class is available via Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community with over 20,000 classes in design, music production, crafts, and more. Premium membership will give you unlimited access to topics that will improve your skills and, in the process, your life. Join the millions of other people who are using Skillshare and get 2 months free by going to skillshare.com/infographics10 or clicking the link in the description and start learning today. So, what do you think? Are you ready to revolt and stop paying taxes? Or would that be the worst idea ever? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Also be sure to watch our other video called Weird Unexplained Signals That Will Creep You Out. Thanks for watching, and as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.